Let's start with the gun perks, which are all going to be very high tier. Machine guns, that's an A tier. Gunslinger, that is an A tier. Deadeye, that's an A tier. Robotics Inventor, I think maybe deserves a high A tier, just because as an individual perk, it does quite a lot, and it does really turn robotic weapons into something actually worth using. And I'm going to put Boomstick actually in S tier. The reason being is I primarily play Insane Nightmare, and I primarily play Strength as well. So for me, for how attractive Strength is as a tree, for all the really useful stuff it has, to have a gun in that tree is extra helpful. But the fact that the gun also happens to have a stun effect thanks to its perk, which makes all nightmare speed zombies go down to basic standard zombie speed for like 8 seconds. Unbelievably good, and it's much better than any of the effects that any of these other perks actually give. Another S tier is going to be Demolitions Expert. Explosives are really good, and if you multiply really good by 50%, you get really good, which is S tier. So we're going to put that there, and we're going to put it above Boomstick. I don't think I need to defend the placement of the primary damage perks in the game very much. Let's do melee weapons as well. I think melee weapon perks are all a lot less useful, because later on in the game your melee weapons are going to fall off a lot on high difficulties, to the point where you can respec out your melee weapon and you probably won't notice a significant difference in your ability to play. For that, I think they are less valuable than gun perks later in the game, and I think that more of the game is set in the late stage of the game if you choose to play for a long time. So I think that we have to rate the melee weapons a little bit lower. So sledgehammers get high B, spears get high B, clubs get high B. I think this is deep cuts, those can get high B. Where's fists? Oh, fists, those can get a high B. And batons is like a lightning bolt, that can get a very high B. Because that is one of the ones, again, that is like, if you don't have this, your baton is useless. So I'll put that as a high B for its impact on the game, right? Also, you might notice there's 2 archery icons here. That's because archery and huntsman use the same one, and I imagine their placement on the list will indicate to you which one is which, so you won't have to worry, because we're going to put archery as a very high B, because I think they're on par with melee weapons in terms of importance, but they also struggle with the same thing of falling off quite badly later on in the game. They're a lot less devastating in this update now that charged zombies and infernal zombies exist, and the damage boost that bows get from agility mastery does not make up for that. Right, so the obvious ones are out of the way pretty quickly. Let's get some other obvious ones that I probably don't need to discuss very much. Charismatic nature, that is an S tier. It gives you, or rather I should say, it gives your teammates 50% faster health regen, 20% more block and melee damage, 10% less damage from all sources, and bleeding stops twice as fast. Party members find 10% better loot, and party members find 20% better loot and gain +1 to all attributes. If 2 players have this on any co-op game, it's unbelievably useful. Now, obviously, it's completely useless in single player, but I don't think that's necessarily a problem that would lower its ranking. If you are playing multiplayer, this is one of the most important perks you can have on your team across at least 1 person, if not 2, to give that other person the same benefit. So it definitely deserves a high S tier. Obviously, it just doesn't do anything in single player, but I don't think it's necessary to compare it to single player. Light armor, which I think deserves a E tier. It gives you 4% more damage resistance for each piece of light armor, which means 16% more damage resistance, which brings it kind of on par with medium armor. And if you combine it with creature armor, you can kind of get like heavy armor damage resistance on light armor, and that's really good. And then I would just put heavy armor and medium armor on B tier, because they don't do much and they cost 8 skill points to max out. In fact, you know what, let's put them on D tier for that, because you can use both of these without that just fine. And of course you can use light armor just fine without it, but it actually does give you a benefit to have light armor, whereas these, it's just kind of like reductions of stamina penalties that the Urban Combat book will give you anyway. This one here represents all of the melee weapon swing speed perks. That's just going to get a C tier. They're all fine. I live without them in pretty much every playthrough though. First, Lucky Looter works by multiplying your loot stage, which is affected by your main level, which means that early game, Lucky Looter does nothing. In late game, Lucky Looter does nothing because you will already be in the highest loot stage. Lucky Looter is a 10 skill point investment to max out, and all it does is give you 25% better loot for the mid game of 7 Days to Die, and you will probably be able to outcraft anything it can give you anyway. The only benefit then throughout the entire game is the 80% faster looting speed, which is not worth 10 levels worth of perk points. It's probably one of the worst perks in the game now, just for that investment. And yeah, just awful perk. And that gets an F tier. I think another F tier is actually Animal Tracker. It's a little bit better than Lucky Looter though. Infiltrator is another F tier. They've made it more effective now that urban combat doesn't completely nullify mines, but it's still just something that isn't really worth worrying about. You know the wasteland is covered in mines. Keep driving quickly and you'll go completely over them without taking damage. And most POIs have mines either in such large numbers that it's extremely easy to not stand on one of them, or they're in extremely obvious places. Mines are rarely in a place that's actually unexpected. I think another C tier perk would be something like Iron Gut. Food and water aren't really a problem in vanilla 7 Days to Die, but Iron Gut does have the benefit of extending the life of consumables. So that means you can get like 50% extra duration from things like Mega Crush or XP boosting things. C is the very definition of, it's fine, it's good. I have no complaints about it, it's just not the most useful thing ever. In a similar vein, I think Pain Tolerance is going to go here. The thing about Pain Tolerance is it's not flat damage resistance, which means it will apply after your armor rating. So if you have 75% damage resistance and you take this, you're not going to be completely immune to damage. Instead, it's going to reduce your damage further by 25%. The no chance to get stunned is actually a lot better. That will save your life from time to time, and it will also prevent you from ever getting concussions as well, because concussions trigger in 50% of stuns. If you didn't know, that's how that effect is applied. So it does make you immune to two very annoying effects, and it does reduce your damage a little bit. Again, it just comes down to Fortitude being a bit niche and requiring 5 skill points to get that bonus. Again, not bad. Rarely, if ever, do I actually take it, because I'm usually just doing something more useful. In a similar vein, I think Better Barter gets a C tier, but like a high C tier. 50% discounts on things at the trader and 50% more money for your items that you sell to the trader is a very useful thing to have. It's just 7 Days to Die isn't balanced in such a way that money is difficult to obtain, and there's better perks for making money than a 50% increase to the amount of money you make. You can get 100% more resources that you can sell to the trader from salvage operations, for example, and that will get you more money on its own objectively if you do that route. But you can combine it with Better Barter to get even more out of it, and that's perfectly valid. I think another C tier would be Master Chef. It reduces the amount of main ingredients you need to cook stuff, and it reduces the crafting time of stuff, and it gets you more food and magazines. The thing is, though, you can just build more campfires. The only real benefit is in multiplayer, where actually finding enough food to feed a lot of people on a server can be really difficult. Another C tier is going to be Living Off the Land. If you are farming, it's a very good perk. You do not need to farm. However, in large multiplayer servers where you're feeding a lot of people, someone should have Living Off the Land. And it's a lot better now that it's not locked behind Fortitude so that you can just get access to it, but it does cost more skill points now, as well as Master Chef. They both cost 6, I think. But it's good. If you are farming, take it. That means it's an adequate perk. It just depends on how often you need to really farm. Daring Adventurer is another C tier perk. Getting double quest rewards is utterly meaningless nowadays because the quest rewards are all shit. But what Daring Adventurer does give you is 10 extra levels of loot stage per rank, as well as extra dukes for your quest rewards, but that's kind of meaningless. What that means is you will be 50 levels higher as far as the traders are concerned for the loot they'll give you, which means you can get some significantly better gear throughout the game. But again, much like Lucky Looter, that does fall off eventually because you already have the max stuff unlocked. And much like some of the other perks I've mentioned that are in C tier, if you're on multiplayer, somebody should have at least one of these so that you can have access to as much loot as possible, because a lower trader stage player will have access to different things than a high loot stage player. Sometimes high trader stage players will lose access to lower trader stage items, so you want to have one person who doesn't have Daring Adventurer in case there's something good but lower tier, and you want somebody to have Daring Adventure in case there's something good and high tier. So it gets the C tier. It's a little bit less useful than Better Barter in my opinion. They kind of go together. I rarely use them these days outside of multiplayer though. Rule 1 Cardio. This is like my hottest take ever. I kind of hated this perk back when it was only 3 ranks. It gives you 50 extra stamina now. So I think the fact that it has gained 2 ranks, which makes it worse, but those 2 ranks are actually useful in that they give you 50 extra stamina is good. There are better ways to spend less stamina though that are more efficient than this. But for that reason, I will give Rule 1 Cardio a healthy low B. It's good. I just don't want to invest that much into it to get what you get out of it. Healing factor gives you 1 health every 5 seconds. It does come at a cost though. It's essentially increasing the speed at which you spend food to regen health. It's not free. You don't just magically get an extra health every 5 seconds. This means you will spend 1 food every 5 seconds. So when you take damage, you will starve yourself very, very quickly. And I've never been short enough on meds in this game to actually feel like this is needed. So I'm going to give it a low C tier. It's good if you've got the food, but the thing about food is if you have the food can also be used to heal you. So I don't know why you need healing factor if you've got heals from food. You need to have a lot of food for it to work. It's a whole thing, but the crit speed definitely I think maybe puts it above pain tolerance actually. Alright, so Miner 69er, that is going to go straight into A tier. Obviously it gives you a lot of extra ores when you're mining. It makes melee tools much more useful for people playing on lower difficulties as weapons. It doesn't really work on high difficulties, certainly not high run speeds, but it's still very useful to get lots and lots of resources and use less stamina. Everybody needs Miner 69er to some extent. You need to be able to open those crates, for example. You're probably going to have to dig things regardless of your playstyle, and digging is very painful, so Miner 69er is always good. Motherload, less so. Motherload just gives you extra resources for your trouble. I don't think it's as useful as any of the melee weapon damage perks. It's nice, but Miner 69er is always the top priority. Pack Mule. This is one that was extremely overpowered a couple of months ago and then was extremely shit for like 5 years. It now gives you maxed out inventory and 50% faster crafting in your inventory, which is minimally useful. It's useful early on in the game when you're crafting cobblestone and arrows and things like that. The real benefit is the 25% chance to ignore damage when hit. That's good, but it's also something you can't depend on anywhere near as much as when it was 50%. So I think Pack Mule deserves a low B or maybe a high B. I think I would still rather invest into an actual melee weapon thing, but I think it's more useful than Motherload because it is a combat perk at all. Then we have Penetrator. This one's going to go into A tier right next to Deadeye because it needs to be paired with it to be useful. Penetrator makes it so that armor piercing ammo completely ignores armor, and it also gives every weapon a 20% reduction to enemy armor, and it gives you the ability to hit 5 enemies with 1 armor piercing bullet if the armor piercing bullet is fired from a rifle class weapon. If you're dealing with a horde knight or just a big crowd of zombies, this is a huge damage multiplier to have, and it makes 7.62 armor piercing rounds one of the most ammo efficient ways to kill things if you're using sniper rifles. Parkour, that is going to be an S tier. Probably the S tier, to be honest. Still, they buffed it in the last update. So parkour, basically you can jump 3 blocks. It removes the need for horde bases for certain playstyles because it reduces your jump stamina as well, and also you'll never get a sprain or broken leg from falling, which means you can just jump off of roofs willy-nilly. And the last rank that they added in this update is never taking fall damage again, so you really can just jump off of buildings. It's a really, really powerful perk in that it's the ultimate defensive perk. It's better than any armor, it's better than any base. All you need is stamina and you will be able to outmaneuver every zombie in the game. It's only not useful when you're locked in a very small room, and that doesn't happen that much, and when it does you can always usually try and avoid it. So parkour gets an S tier still. Perception Mastery. Perception Mastery gives you extra jukes, nice. Extra steel when harvesting cars, gun safes and shopping carts, really nice. Bleed for your primary attack on your spear and rifles is meaningless because it's just not a lot of damage, not on non-agility weapons anyway. Sprinting power attacks with spears deal 25% more damage is nice, but sprinting power attacks are a big pain in the ass. I'll talk about that later. And rifle damage is 50% more. So of course we're just going to put that straight in A tier next to Penetrator because extra steel and the same amount of damage you get from Deadeye for the same amount of perk points. It just makes sense. If you're using rifles, of course. Salvage Operations is another A tier. I'd say it's better than Miner 69er. It gives you the salvaging version of Miner 69er and Motherload in 1 perk rather than it being split in 2, and in a pinch you can even use it to replace Miner 69er by just hitting rocks with your wrench and getting lots of resources from it. It's kind of scuffed, but it does work, and it will save you having to go into strength if you want. Next we have Treasure Hunter. I'm going to give this a low B tier. It has been buffed significantly in 2.0. It now gives you double damage to dirt, 30% more items and buried treasure, as well as reducing the radius of treasure radius things every 3 blocks, which is pretty good. It gives you extra dukes in your buried chest, an extra weapon, armor, or rare item in all buried chests, which is an extra layer of usefulness for a perk that I thought was kind of shit before. I think it deserves at least a B tier. For what would have been previously an F tier perk, I think getting a B tier is not too bad at all. Which brings us to, I think that's Agility Mastery. Agility Mastery gives you a 40% chance to instantly cripple enemies with leg shots. Kind of mid, because you don't want to be aiming for the legs even with that ability. You want to just kill enemies faster. Handguns reload 20% faster is nice. Handguns cause bleed is kind of irrelevant, because I don't think it works the same way knives do, so it'll just be an extra 20 damage over 20 seconds. This one's actually the better pack mule in my opinion, because it recharges every 60 seconds and you will just avoid damage from it. Because you have a countdown that tells you precisely when this comes off of cooldown, and you know that the next hit is guaranteed to be negated, you can use it much more strategically than Pack Mule in my opinion. It's actually better than Pack Mule, I think, because it's guaranteed, there's just a cooldown. Overall though, Agility Mastery I think is a very good perk for that ability to just not take damage if you do it strategically. I think I would give it like, it's better than Pack Mule, but I would still probably prefer a melee. No, because I think I would actually use it more than a melee perk. It has more late game uses, I think. So I'll put it just here ahead of bows themselves. Yeah, that's a good place for it. This is From the Shadows. Because stealth has been enshittified consistently over the last 5 years, with them adding more and more triggers and more perception to the zombies, and now stealth is less viable because I'm less able to stealth kill enemies because more of them have 50 billion health. This kind of just goes into D tier. It's fine, it does its job, but stealth isn't a priority anymore ever since they added the higher tier zombies. In that same vein, the sneak attack damage boost on Hidden Strike is kind of mid as well. I will put it in a high C tier because early game is actually a really underrated way to do a lot of damage as an agility build. If you start out as a bow player on like Insane Nightmare and use Hidden Strike instead of damage for your knife, it's actually a viable way for you to play. It's actually quite fun as well. But because you can no longer reliably one-hit kill the hardest enemies in the game with it, I don't really need it. It's another one of those things. It was either all or now it's nothing. So yeah, but that early game use for archery being more useful is actually underrated, but C tier is all I can give it. Then we have Fortitude Mastery, which is actually really good. You get killing an enemy will instantly stop bleeding. After recovering from an infection, you're immune to further infection for 2 real world hours. That's really nice. A 10% chance to get gold or silver from zombie kills is okay. Like, it's a weird place for a money-making perk, but alright. And then plus 100 health is crazy. That's 100 levels of extra health. For that reason, I'm actually going to put Fortitude Mastery in S tier. There's not a lot of ways to increase the amount of health you have in 7 Days to Die, and 100 health is a lot of extra survivability, even accounting for the fact that zombies do more damage at the higher levels now. Grand Slam, listen, it's kind of shit, and I'll tell you why. A 50% chance to ragdoll enemies when you're sprinting at them with a melee weapon is not worth the ragdoll chance. Half the time, literally, you will just get hit in the face and do nothing, and you'll be in a position where you have to pull away from zombies. Because you have to get so close and you're so overextended when you sprint attack right into a crowd of zombies, and it's hard to pull back from it, especially on like Insane Nightmare. It's not worth it. It's fun, but it doesn't, like, it's not an effective strategy because it's only a 50% chance, which means that half the time, instead of getting the knockdown, you're going to get punched in the mouth for like 50 damage. Not worth it in my opinion at all. That gives us Hard Target. Hard Target gives you 25% less damage when moving. Just any kind of moving, you will take 25% less damage. That is obviously very good. That's basically just 25% damage resistance, which is a lot better than pain tolerance. The only caveat is that you have to be moving, and you should always be moving in combat. Never stand still in combat. This only doesn't affect you if you get snuck up on, basically, or cornered, right? So for just a 25% damage resistance perk, I'll give that like a high A. Intellect Mastery. So Intellect Mastery gives you 20% less damage in fuel consumption for vehicles, which is nice. 25% chance to find books, magazines, or schematics in loot is ridiculous, and it works on almost every container in the game. 50% chance to gain 2 skill points when reading magazines. Stacks with nerd armor, so you can get 100% chance to get 2 skill points. Really, really good for your progression. I think it goes without saying, it's unbelievably good. And then the last 2 ranks are alright. Stun batons take 2 hits to charge. Stun batons are always ready. You really don't need that. Stun batons should be more than powerful enough without this. You should have stuns frequently enough that you don't have to waste 2 skill points on that. But they're not bad if you want to invest them. It's just I think it's unnecessary. I think for its book benefits, Intellect Mastery is another high S tier because the learn by reading system is so bad that anything that lets me get through it quicker is going to be one of the best perks in the game. Junk Miner, that is going to get a solid sort of like middle B tier. A little bit worse than these, I'd say, but better than Rule 1 Cardio. It gives you 100% resource yields from things that aren't ores and aren't wrenchable either, so curtains and shit like that. Any blocks that you would hit with an axe or a pickaxe that aren't an actual ore or stone. Physician, I'm going to give a very high A tier because Physician is a very versatile perk. Physician, on top of giving you 100% more health per medical item, which is really good, and on top of healing your critical injuries 50% faster, which is really, really good, and the XP bonus is whatever. You can also cure broken limbs instantly. You can cure brains instantly. You can craft items at your chemistry station 40% faster. And you get a 20% chance to dismember enemies with batons, and you get a 10% chance to insta-kill with batons. So it's good for combat in that it gives you medical boosts, but it also gives you actual combat boosts, and it gives you a crafting boost, and it gives you just really, really good quality of life things, like being able to cure broken limbs instantly. Points in Physician are absolutely never wasted. They're always going to help you somehow. In fact, I would even give it a low S tier, quite honestly. Medicine was rarer in 7 Days to Die, it would just climb S tier, but because meds are quite common, the actual health boost from Physician, which is the main thing, is kind of meh. You should also always have someone on your team who has Physician in multiplayer as well, so they can cure your broken limbs for you. It becomes even more powerful in multiplayer, I would say kind of on par with Charismatic Nature. There should be 2 people so that they can heal each other and heal everybody else. This gives us Run and Gun, which, believe it or not, is another low S tier perk. Run and Gun removes the movement penalty when reloading, which makes the game, how do I put this, enjoyable to play slightly, because the reload penalty movement speed thing just makes gunplay feel like absolute dog ass. If you hate gunplay in 7 Days to Die and you've never taken this perk, try it and see if it feels better. Also, hipfire accuracy improvements just means that you get better hipfire accuracy to the point where you don't have to aim your gun like down sights to actually hit heads and do enough damage to stay competitive. That means you can move faster while shooting. It means you can really sprint around and shoot at the same time, and it works just fine, which is really, really good for non-horde base horde nights. And it also feels really cool. It's kind of been nerfed a little bit by the fact that it now takes 5 ranks to do what used to be done in 3. Ideally, this perk wouldn't even exist. We would just not have a movement penalty while reloading and the game would feel a lot better, but that's another problem. So for what it does, it's a low S tier. Then we have Grease Monkey. Kind of a hot take. It's honestly F tier. Like, here's the thing about Grease Monkey. Yes, it's nice to get extra vehicle adventures magazines. However, I had a gyrocopter on day 14, or no, it was day 17, sorry, on my main playthrough, where I didn't prioritize finding vehicle adventures at all. I just found enough of them now that they've buffed their spawn rate, and I was using the Intellect Mastery perk. I did not need Grease Monkey to have a gyrocopter before the 3rd Horde night, which tells me that the Grease Monkey's vehicle adventures boost, which was its only thing it had going for it, is useless. Otherwise, it gives you 50% more effective repair kits on vehicles, which is nice, but really, what are you saving? Some duct tape and forged iron? By the time you have to worry about that, you have repair kits. If they were rarer, then sure. And the ability to craft all the vehicles 33% cheaper is fucking meaningless. Why? I'm only ever going to craft one of these. Multiplayer, more viable. You're going to actually save a lot of resources over time with that. But you know what, since I am considering multiplayer a little bit, I will give it a low D tier. I still think you'd be better off spending your points in salvage ops and just having 100% more resources than saving 33% resources, but here we are. Strength Mastery is really good. All critical injuries heal 100% faster when holding a mining tool. Great. 5% chance to get scrap brass when harvesting ore blocks. Great. Mining tools doing more damage to zombies when used in combat. It's nice for people who are going to be using those on lower difficulties and have to go up against things like charged zombies, I guess. Headshots with clubs and sledgehammers doing an additional 50% chance to dismember is bullshit. It's one of the most OP effects in the game. They already have such a high dismemberment chance, they didn't need more. And you made two of the best melee weapons in the game even better. I don't understand. And then kills with strength-based weapons grant 25% damage resistance for 5 seconds. That includes the shotgun. So obviously it's a fucking S tier, isn't it? It's going to be an S tier. Probably, yeah, there. 25% additional damage resistance, which does work with hard target, means that if you dump those two together, you just have a flat 50% damage resistance 90% of the time without your armor. And then your armor is applied as well, you're not going to take damage. Lockpicking is going to get like a D tier. I'll put it above these. Advanced Engineering, solid B tier, just above Motherlode, but just under Pack Mule. And the last one is Huntsman, which I'm just going to give like a low C tier. Gives you extra meat, bones, leather, things you'll need. It's just in Fortitude and you're probably never going to actually use it. I really hope I haven't missed any perks, but there's so fucking many. It's honestly hard to tell, so let me know if I am missing any. And here's the final list. A pretty balanced. If you've enjoyed this, you might enjoy my updated melee weapons tier list for 2.0. Check it out on screen right now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.